My brother got my fiancée pregnant before our wedding. My family wants to forgive me, but I cut ties and moved away. This is going to be a long story, and it's exactly as strange as it sounds. I will try to be as concise as possible, but there is a lot to discuss. I don't care if anyone believes this or not. It's so ridiculous that I have to rant. Also, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, but I'll leave out any details that could identify me to anyone unfamiliar with the situation. I'm 32 years old, and up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years, Sarah. My younger brother Mike is 29 years old and has always been our family's golden child. To properly understand the seriousness of this betrayal and why it affected me so hard, I need to provide some context for our family dynamics and how we reached this point. Growing up, Mike could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, whereas I was continually admonished and punished for little offenses. This was not your average sibling rivalry or subtle partiality. It was outright and intense. If Mike broke something, I'd be accused. If he began a fight, I would be grounded. If we both got straight A's, Mike would get a new video game console, and I'd get a pat on the back and a reminder to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, were constantly making excuses for their favoritism. Mike's younger. He needs more attention. You're the older one, you should know better. Mike's just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him. The constant barrage of unreasonable standards and gaslighting made me feel useless and disliked in my own home. As we grew older, the favoritism became more obvious. And when I was accepted to a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely mentioned it. When Mike opted to attend community college, they gave him a big party and purchased him a car for commuting. Never mind that I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for several years. I moved out as quickly as possible to get away from the harmful surroundings. I supported myself in college by working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Meanwhile, Mike dropped out of community college after just 1 semester, claiming that it wasn't for him. Our parents commended him for knowing himself, rather than conforming to societal expectations. They even backed his string of unsuccessful business projects over the years, regardless of how badly planned or hopeless they were. No matter how much distance I tried to build, my family was always able to pull me back in. Holiday dinners were a nightmare of subtle insults and less than subtle comparisons. Are you still in that entry-level position? Well, Mike is thinking of starting another business. He's very entrepreneurial. Never mind that I was slowly developing a secure job while Mike squandered our parents' retirement savings. Despite everything, I attempted to keep contact with Mike. He was still my brother after all. However, it was always one-sided. I'd reach out to connect, but he'd either ignore me or find a way to make the conversation competitive. If I was promoted, Mike would suddenly have a large opportunity come up. If I began dating someone, Mike would undoubtedly be in a serious relationship. I met Sarah while trying to reunite with Mike. She was a friend of one of Mike's brief romantic relationships, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was everything I wanted in a partner: intelligent, amusing, caring, and breathtakingly gorgeous. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely satisfied and cherished. My folks, however, were not delighted. They made snide jokes about Sarah being out of my league, and questioned what she saw in me. Mike, on the other hand, took an uncommon interest in my life. He was always asking about Sarah, wanting to know everything about her. At the moment, I was simply relieved that he appeared to be interested in something in my life. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating, and it was great. We both had successful careers, traveled much, and discussed our future plans. For the first time, I began to believe that I could have the life I had always desired. A successful profession, a loving partner, and possibly children someday. On our 4th anniversary, I proposed to Sarah. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a nice supper at home and a moving speech. I was overjoyed when she said yes. We planned on having a long engagement and taking our time planning the wedding. We weren't in a hurry. We had our entire lives ahead of us, or so I believed. When we informed my family of our engagement, their emotions were diverse, to say the least. My mother put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that implied it was anything but. My father grunted and said, "Good luck with that," before returning to his television. Mike had the oddest reaction. He congratulated us, but his smile was unnerving, almost predatory. I disregarded it at the time, attributing it to my own fears. The following year was dominated by wedding preparations and job stress. Sarah and I were both working hard hours to save for our wedding and a down payment on a home. We weren't seeing each other as much as we used to, but I figured it was simply a phase. Every relationship has difficulties, right? Looking back, I should have noticed the symptoms. Sarah became distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts she dismissed as coming from work friends. She began going out more with her friends, returning home late and smelling of booze and cologne. I still trusted her entirely. I never imagined her cheating, let alone with my own brother. Sarah began to behave strangely a few months ago. She was temperamental, angry, and frequently nauseated. I was excited about the chance that she was pregnant. We hadn't been trying, but we had discussed having children someday. I began brainstorming methods to help her, such as nursery colors and baby names. Then, one night, she sat me down, tears running down her cheeks, and delivered the bombshell. She was pregnant, but the baby was not mine. I was stunned. Yes, we hadn't been intimate much lately because of our tight schedules, but I never anticipated her to cheat. When I asked who the father was, she broke down and muttered, "It's Mike." My entire universe came crumbling down at that point. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had based my existence on, was shattered. I couldn't breathe or think because I was overcome with feelings of betrayal and grief. Sarah attempted to explain, her words falling out between sobs. Apparently, it began during our engagement party. Mike had approached her, saying she was making a mistake by marrying me. He used her weaknesses, telling her she deserved better and that he could offer her everything I couldn't. It wasn't a one-time event, they'd been having an affair for months. I kicked Sarah out that night. I couldn't stomach looking at her or being in the same room as the lady who had deceived me so totally. She begged me to forgive her, saying it was a mistake and she loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she had lied to me, slept with my brother, and done so while wearing the ring I had given her. After Sarah departed, I confronted Mike. I can't recall what I said. It was all a swirl of wrath and pain. At first, he tried to dismiss it as a drunken mistake that didn't mean anything. But when I questioned him, he grew defensive, saying, "Well, maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." I saw red. I got in my car and headed to his apartment, intending to make him regret what he said. I'm not sure what I was planning to accomplish, but when I arrived, our parents were already present. Mike presumably called them first, telling them about Sarah seducing him and apologizing. And you know what? They believed him. They always do. My mother immediately began lecturing me about forgiveness and family, while my father stood there with his arms crossed, obviously disappointed in me but not in his beloved Mike. I tried to explain what had happened, but they refused to listen. They kept encouraging me to forgive Mike and support Sarah during her pregnancy because family comes first. I lost it. Years of pent-up hatred and anger finally came out. I told them how I felt about their strange sense of dedication, how they had always preferred Mike over me and had never taken my side or backed me. I informed Mike that he was no longer my brother, that he had died for me. I told my parents they could have the son they'd always wanted because they no longer had me. I stormed away, ignoring their shouts and pleads. I traveled for hours without a destination in mind, simply wanting to get away from everything and everyone. When I finally arrived home, I saw dozens of missed calls and messages. Sarah begged for another opportunity, and Mike alternated between apologies and accusations. Most of the messages, however, came from my parents, who demanded that I grow up and make amends. I disregarded them all. I rarely ate or slept. I called out of work, using up all of my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone or bear the thought of explaining what had happened. I just sat in my apartment, going over every detail of my relationship with Sarah and every encounter with Mike, trying to find out where I went wrong. It has been 3 months now. To cope with everything, I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and began treatment. But my family refuses to quit up. Despite my efforts to break off communication, they continue to intrude into my life. They've started coming up at my office, hoping to ambush me and demand a reconciliation. My mother approaches me in the parking lot, sobbing about how I'm tearing the family apart. My father leaves scathing voicemail messages, imploring me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike himself has attempted to approach me multiple times, but I have managed to dodge him thus far. They've even used flying monkeys, extended family members dressed as concerned parties, to guilt-trip me into forgiving Mike. Aunts, and cousins I haven't spoken to in years suddenly phone, reminding me how important family is and how I should let bygones be bygones. It's as if they live in a parallel reality where Mike and Sarah made a minor mistake rather than a life-altering betrayal. I received a message from Sarah yesterday. She is keeping the baby and intends to co-parent with Mike. And guess what? My parents are pleased to become grandparents, conveniently ignoring the circumstances and the disparaging remarks they made about Sarah when she was with me. The letter was filled with apologies and explanations, including how she and Mike found real love amidst this horrific scenario. She even had the nerve to say that she hopes we can all become friends someday for the sake of the child. I am at my wit's end. Part of me wants to break all links, relocate to another state, change my identity, and start again somewhere no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so angry that I want to stay and fight, to show them how twisted the situation is. I do not know what to do. This betrayal has affected every aspect of my life. I cannot take being alone with my thoughts. I haven't even considered dating again because the thought of trusting someone like that scares me. I've also lost friends as a result of this. Those who believe I should take the high road and reconcile with my family, as if I'm the bad person for refusing to play happy families with the people who have caused me the most pain. The thought of Sarah and Mike raising a kid together, a child who should have been mine, is like a constant knife in my gut. I understand, cognitively, that the child is innocent in all of this. It's not the baby's fault that its parents are liars and cheaters. But I can't force myself to feel happy about its presence. My parents have begun to consider how I should participate in the child's life and how I will become an uncle. The thought makes me feel physically uncomfortable. How can I look at this child without seeing the ultimate emblem of my brother's betrayal? So, Reddit, my question is, am I an idiot for not forgiving my brother and ex-fiancé? Is it wrong to want to lose connections with my family over this? Any advice on how to proceed would be highly welcomed, as I feel as if I am drowning in a sea of deception and gaslighting. I apologize for this lengthy post. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Writing it all out has been cathartic in a way. I'm not sure what I'm hoping to achieve by sharing this. Validation, wisdom, or simply the opportunity to scream into the void and have someone, anybody hear me. Edit. Oh my God, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for your assistance and advice. I'm astounded by the response, and it will take me some time to get through all of the comments. However, I wanted to answer a few typical queries. Yes, I have contacted a lawyer about obtaining a restraining order against my family. It is currently in progress. I do not intend to have any contact with the baby. It is not the child's fault, but I cannot become involved without losing my mind. For those who are curious about my work, I have already spoken with HR about the matter. They are aware and supportive. They've increased security at the front desk and given me the option of working from home more regularly. I am grateful for their understanding. Many of you have inquired whether I had contemplated moving to another city or state. It is definitely something I am thinking about. My company has offices in several other cities, so a transfer could be possible. I'm considering the advantages and cons. To those suggesting a DNA test, Sarah has admitted to the affair, and the timeline is congruent. I see no reason to believe the child is not Mike's. Even if it were my child, I doubt I could ever look at him without thinking about this treachery. The sheer number of people who have had comparable experiences has overwhelmed me. It's sad to understand how common this type of betrayal is, but it's also weirdly reassuring to know I am not alone. Thank you for sharing your stories. To the individual who inquired whether I had explored legal action against Mike for alienation of affection, I looked into it, but it is not recognized in my state. Even if it were, I doubt I have the energy for a judicial struggle right now. Several people have noted that Mike's behavior appears narcissistic. I've started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and a lot of it rings true. It helps me comprehend, but it does not justify his conduct. Those inquiring about Sarah's relatives are as startled and outraged as one would imagine. They have stopped communicating with her and have reached out to offer me their support. It's a minor comfort, but I value it. To the person who inquired if I'd ever considered having my own children, to be honest, this entire experience has made me rethink if I even want a family. I'm trying not to make any big decisions while I analyze everything. I'll keep you posted if something big happens, but for now, my priority is to recuperate and move forward. Thanks again, Reddit. You have helped more people than you realize. Your support and recommendations have given me a lot to think about, and they've really been a lifeline during this difficult time. I may not be able to answer every remark, but please know that I read them all and they have helped me feel less alone. Update. Hello Reddit. It's been nearly 2 weeks since my previous post, and it has been a roller coaster. First and foremost, thank you for your invaluable assistance and guidance. I didn't anticipate my post to go viral. Reading through all of your answers has been upsetting and somehow reassuring. It's disturbing how regular this type of deception is. The past few weeks have been really hard. Remember how I mentioned that I was working on getting a restraining order? That became a tremendous ordeal. My lawyer had filed the papers, and we had a hearing planned. I assumed it would be simple given the proof and the constant harassment, but I was mistaken. My parents arrived to court with their own lawyer, a high-powered attorney dressed in an expensive suit who most likely costs more per hour than I do in a week. They attempted to portray me as the insane one, claiming I was ripping the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike had stumbled and fell into my fiancée. Fortunately, the judge did not buy it. She issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but only after my mother sobbed in court and my father stared at me as if I had committed murder. Mike's reaction, however, I swear, if looks could kill, I wouldn't have left the courthouse alive. As we were leaving, Mike attempted to approach me, but my lawyer intervened, reminding him of the newly issued restraining order. Mike simply scoffed and stated, "This isn't over. You can't hide behind a piece of paper forever." I'd be lying if I said his remarks didn't make me uncomfortable, but at least I have some legal protection now. My job situation has also been a nightmare. Remember when I mentioned my family visiting my workplace? It all culminated last week. I was at a client meeting when my assistant alerted me to the fact that my mother was raising a disturbance in the foyer. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was showing my co-workers baby images of Mike and me while crying about how close her boys used to be. When I arrived downstairs, I found her surrounded by several uneasy-looking colleagues. She was in the middle of telling a story about Mike and me bathing together when we were toddlers. When she recognized me, she attempted to approach me, babbling about organizing a baby shower. I cut her off, telling her she had to go immediately or I'd call the cops for trespassing and breaching the restraining order. Her expression looked as if I had smacked her, but after everything they had put me through, I couldn't care. Security let her out, and I spent the next hour coordinating with my boss and co-workers to minimize the damage. Most of them understood, but I could tell some were concerned about the drama I was bringing into the office. But it was the interaction with Mike that truly threw me off course. Last Saturday, I was in the gym, trying to let out my rage on the punching bag. I was so absorbed that I didn't realize someone was approaching until I heard his voice. I looked back, and there was Mike, smirking at me as if he hadn't just broken the restraining order. He began shouting loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear. I ordered him to go before I contacted the cops, but he laughed and said he was going to tell them I had threatened him and Sarah. That's when I lost it. I struck at him, landing a punch squarely on his jaw. He stumbled back, then pounced at me. We ended up on the floor, trading blows like children again, but this time, there were no parents to separate us, no one instructing me to be the bigger person, and let Mike win. I managed to land a couple decent hits before the gym staff intervened. Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my face swell. We were both shrieking, attempting to break free and go at each other again. The gym manager threatened to call the cops, which ultimately shook me out of it. I grabbed my belongings and fled. I was driving home, still shivering from the adrenaline rush, when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I responded. Sarah was shouting at me about breaking Mike's nose and suggesting he would require surgery. I couldn't stop giggling. Sarah being unhappy with me after what they had done was plain ludicrous. I sarcastically apologized if I irritated her little boyfriend, whom she had been sleeping with behind my back for months. She started crying, moaning about how frightened she was, how the baby could feel her suffering, and how I was so selfish. I hung up and blocked her phone. The consequences of the brawl were serious. The news traveled quickly within our social circle. My phone was inundated with texts from friends and relatives, some of whom were supportive, while others chastised me for assaulting my poor, defenseless brother. Sarah's parents contacted me again, expressing their support for me as well as displeasure in their daughter. It was a minor consolation, but at this point, I'll take what I can. The restraining order does not seem enough anymore. Mike has already demonstrated his willingness to violate it, and I am truly afraid about what he may do next. The legal consequences have been a nightmare. My lawyer contacted me the day after the gym incident to inform me that Mike had filed assault charges against me. I described how Mike broke the restraining order and provoked me. My lawyer groaned and said we'd fight it, but it might be a tough struggle because I threw the first punch. We are in the process of filing charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order. My lawyer believes that this will strengthen our case, but nothing is assured. I've had to give police statements, show them my facial and knuckle injuries, and explain why I was defending myself against my own brother. The entire process is humiliating. To make matters worse, Mike and I have been permanently barred from the gym. While I don't blame them, it's terrible because the gym was one of the only locations where I could express my anger in a healthy manner. My cousin Amy, with whom I've always been close, called me lately. She's been under a lot of pressure from her family to support me, but she's standing firm. She explained what had been going on behind the scenes. Apparently, My parents have been telling everyone that I'm having a mental breakdown. They claim that Sarah and Mike's relationship began after Sarah and I split up, and that I'm simply envious and unwilling to move on. According to Amy, the majority of the family is suspicious, but some are buying into the story. It's infuriating to know they're spreading lies about me while I'm still trying to recuperate. Work has been difficult, to say the least. After the event with my mother generating a disturbance in the lobby and the argument with Mike becoming viral on local social media, I can see my coworkers are nervous around me. Earlier this week, my manager summoned me to his office. He began by saying he regarded me as an employee and recognized that I was going through a difficult time. Then he dropped the bombshell. He proposed that I take a leave of absence until things settled down. He referred to it as a personal sabbatical, paid, of course, but it was evident that the decision had been taken. I wanted to fight, tell him that work was the only thing keeping me sane right now, but I knew it would be fruitless. I agreed, thanked him for his understanding, and began to pack up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard two coworkers whispering about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant. I slammed my office door louder than required as I walked out, taking some tiny joy in seeing them jump. I would be lying if I said none of this bothered me. I've begun taking long trips at night just to get out of my flat. Sometimes I find myself parked outside my old house, the one I shared with Sarah, wondering how my life became so messed up. In the midst of all this commotion, I found comfort from an unexpected source. Sarah's younger sister Emma. She messaged me on social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her support. At first, I was skeptical. What if it was all a trick? But after speaking with her, I understood she was equally outraged by Sarah's acts as I was. Emma has kept me informed about Sarah and Mike's lives. They appear to have moved in together, living as if they did not wreck several lives in order to be together. Emma claims Sarah is attempting to portray herself as the victim, crying to anybody who will listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone, and that she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. It makes me sick to my stomach, but I appreciate Emma keeping me updated. After all, information is power, even if it is knowledge that I would rather not have. The social media impact has been a nightmare. I've always been a quiet person, but this event has thrust me into an unwelcome limelight. Someone, most likely one of Mike's friends, posted about our feud on a local Facebook page. The post did not identify our names, but it recounted the situation in enough detail that anyone who knows us might figure it out. The comment section became a battleground. Some individuals defended me, claiming Mike received what he deserved. Others classified me as unstable and said I ought to be locked away. I made a terrible mistake by reading some of the comments one night after too many beers. I threw my phone across the room so forcefully that the screen cracked. Since then, I've deleted the majority of my social media profiles. I can't handle the continuous notifications and messages from people I haven't spoken to in years, all of whom suddenly want to know the juicy details of my personal life. With everything that has happened, I have realized that I cannot stay in this city any longer. There are too many memories and opportunities to run into Sarah, Mike, or my parents. I've started looking into internal transfers at my company, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal, I've never liked the continual rain, but at this point, I'd go to the moon to get away from all of this upheaval. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the prospect of a new beginning is growing more appealing. A new city, a new apartment, and a new life where no one recognizes me as the person whose brother cheated on his fiancée. My parents have remained abnormally silent since the restraining order was imposed. I'm simply waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find a new method to force their way back into my life. Meanwhile, Sarah has been spreading the word about her pregnancy far and wide. Emma tells me she's been posting continuous updates on social media, including ultrasound photographs, belly shots, and messages about how blessed she and Mike are and how thrilled they are to start their family. Each new update feels like a fresh wound, triggering the pain just as I thought I was beginning to recover. So that is where things stand. 2 weeks ago, I believed my life couldn't get any worse, yet it has. I am still angry and wounded, but also exhausted. I am tired of justifying myself. Reddit, I suppose this is less of an update and more of a cry into the void. I'm not sure what I'm asking for anymore. Advice, pity, or perhaps a time machine to prevent me from ever introducing Sarah to my brother. Whatever happens next, I will attempt to keep you all updated. Your encouragement meant more to me than you understand. It's comforting to be reminded that there are still good individuals in the world, even when everything appears to be full of betrayal and deception. Hello, Reddit. It's been a week since my last update, and I'm here with what I hope to be my final post about this calamity. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their assistance and advice along this journey. Your messages have been a lifeline at the darkest days in my life. A lot has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to digest everything. I guess I'll start with the major news. I'm moving. Yes, I took the risk and accepted a transfer to our Seattle location. It wasn't an easy decision, but with everything that had transpired, I realized I needed a new beginning. The choice came following a particularly difficult day last week. I had just returned from another meeting with my lawyer over Mike's assault allegations when I noticed a message in my mailbox. It came from Sarah. I nearly threw it out, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside, there was an ultrasound photo and a handwritten letter expressing her and Mike's joy over their baby. She said she hoped I could find it in my heart to be pleased for them and that their child would be overjoyed to have me as an uncle. I saw red. Before I knew it, I had cleared Sarah's phone number and contacted her. She picked up on the second ring, so I let loose. I told her precisely how I felt about her, Mike, and their beautiful little family. I told her she was insane if she thought I'd ever want anything to do with that child, and that she, Mike, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my best moment, but it felt liberating to finally express all I'd been keeping back. That night, I realized I couldn't live in the city any longer. I called my supervisor and informed him that I wanted to relocate to Seattle. To my surprise, he appeared relieved, probably concerned about how all of this drama would reflect on the organization. He promised to expedite the papers, and by the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to collect my belongings and relocate across the nation. My family and social circle were quick to learn about my move. Unsurprisingly, my folks were furious. They turned up uninvited to my flat, defying the restraining order once more, to try to persuade me not to go. My mother cried, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my father raged at me for being selfish and immature. I didn't participate. I contacted the police and had them removed for breaking the injunction. My mother shouted as they were let out, telling me that I would regret it, that family is everything, and that I was wasting it. I slammed the door and returned to packing. Mike did not contact me directly, likely due to ongoing legal issues, but he did write a lengthy statement on social media. He talked about how some people can't handle seeing others happy, and how he and Sarah were rising above the hate to focus on their new family unit. It was plainly directed at me. I'll admit it hurt to see how many people liked and commented on his behalf, but I told myself that their opinions are meaningless because they don't know the truth. Sarah's remark was the most unexpected. Following our phone talk, she confided in her sister Emma, who has been keeping me updated on their condition. Emma informed me Sarah had a breakdown, stating she knew what she and Mike had done was wrong and was frightened of the future. My cousin Amy, bless her, offered to help me pack. While we worked, she told me more about what was going on in her family. Apparently, my aunt, my mother's sister, had a furious dispute with my mother. She accused her of consistently preferring Mike and pushing me away. She even informed my parents that they were reaping the repercussions of their years of favoritism. I won't lie, it felt good to hear that someone in the family was finally calling them out. My lawyer promised me that my move would have no effect on the pending legal dispute. We're still pursuing charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order, and we're fighting the assault allegations he made against me. My lawyer feels certain that the judge will see through Mike's lies, especially given his history of violating the injunction. Moving across the nation may potentially help our case, as it demonstrates that I am not a threat to Mike and have no intention of dealing with him. I'm not sure if I will post another update after this. Part of starting over is leaving the past behind, and as helpful as this group has been, I believe it is time for me to move on from this sad chapter. I need to focus on creating a new life rather than obsessing on the past. So, I guess this is it. Wish me luck, Reddit. I have a whole new life ahead of me in Seattle, and I plan to make the most of it. Thank you for staying with me throughout this. Your help has been tremendous, and it's reassuring to know that there are still good people out there, even in a world filled with betrayal and deception. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.